Ladies and gentlemen, we are back live. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we've got here in the final 52 minutes of this radio broadcast, we have Sheriff Richard Mack, author, speaker, former sheriff. Richard Mack has served in a wide variety of roles and over the course of his nearly 20-year career in law enforcement, which began in Provo, Utah. Mack began his career with the Provo Police Department. And, of course, he then became a sheriff. And he, of course, was involved in a famous Supreme Court case defending the Second Amendment. And now he's traveling all over the country in high demand, educating people about the 10th Amendment, the 11th Amendment, the 9th Amendment, the power of states' rights, and the fact that the legislature creates the counties. Cities are then chartered under the state. We have the cities trying to take over the states now. I mean, that's basically what's happening. You have cities trying to take over the counties, which is an extension of the state. And so this is completely backwards. It's just like globalists have come into Austin, and they have financed Austin raising a $2.6 billion tax, doubling our energy cost in the next 3 years. They're seizing Mopac to put toll roads on it, admittedly illegal. It's an existing road. But they don't care. I mean, because the cities aren't following the 10th Amendment. They have been taken over just like the federal government's been taken over. So we've got to head them off at the pass, taking our counties and our states back. So it's not just 10th Amendment nullification of unconstitutional federal laws and taxes that's moving forward. And you're seeing that, of course, with Arizona saying they're going to defend the border down there. But it's expanding to now the county sheriffs as well. And for over a decade, Sheriff Richard Mack has been exposing this. He also has a book on the subject. But Sheriff, before we go any further and get into that, talk about the state of the Second Amendment. And for folks that aren't aware of it, your Supreme Court case and your take on what the Supreme Court ruled on a few weeks ago. But good to have you here with us.
Well, thanks, Alex. It's always great to be with you, and I appreciate you giving me some time today. And, man, yes, I am really busy, and I'll be in Fresno this weekend, and on Monday I go to Amarillo, and we're going to have several sheriffs there, and I'm teaching my Constitution class for peace officers there to public and peace officers alike, and I'm doing that all across the country. And I really do feel that the title of my book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, really basically tells it all. That's a state sovereignty issue. Arizona is now exemplifying the power of state sovereignty. It is the only answer left. I don't see any other recourse for the states or for personal freedom other than states standing against the incursions of the federal government.
Well, Sheriff, I want to get to that in a moment, but I want to go back first to your history for folks who may not know who you are. We're on a lot of new stations since you were last on with us, and kind of talk about your awakening so other officers can basically see it from that perspective. And then let's get into your Supreme Court case and where you see the Second Amendment being. Then we'll spend the rest of the hour on the states' rights movement.
All right, well, fantastic. Well, when I was elected sheriff here in southern Arizona, it was at Graham County back in 1988. Then I was reelected in 1992, and then the Brady Bill came out in it was signed into law by Bill Clinton at the end of 1993, and it went into effect February of 1994. And the key part of that whole thing is that there was a component within the Brady Bill that required local officials, and it was in most cases the sheriff, to conduct background checks on citizens before they could buy a gun. So we're being forced under a threat of arrest. There was no money attached to this, Alex, as you'll recall, but there was a threat of arrest if we failed to comply. So this is the first time in U.S. history that the United States Congress wished to compel and commandeer the office of sheriffs for federal bidding. So this is the picture, this is the perspective. Local officials elected by, for, and of the people to serve their needs and to serve their constitutional rights are now being dragooned, as one of the judges called it. We're now being dragooned into federal service and forced to violate our oath of office and to violate the rights of our citizens to keep and bear arms. And If we don't do it, they threaten to arrest us.
You're being pressed into service. You're being literally shanghaied, enslaved, drug on to the federal reservation with an unconstitutional law. Thank God it's you know, to some extent been thrown out,
right?
But still there, you know, some remnants. I mean, this is amazing that this is going on, and it's an unfunded mandate. It's literally indentured servitude. I mean, there's so many issues here. Continue.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned indentured servitude, because I actually filed on the 13th Amendment, which was, you know, just what you said, unlawful servitude.
Yes.
And to the federal government. And the federal government cannot tell your sheriff what to do. There is no one, not the EPA, not the FBI, not the President of the United States, and I don't care who the President is. I don't care if it's George Washington himself. He has no authority to tell your sheriff or your local officials what to do. That's why they usually try to bribe everybody. That's the whole point of the states.
Well,
exactly.
And if we allow the feds to tell us what size toilet we can have and what our kids can eat and what the sheriff can do, I mean, why even have states?
Exactly. That's a key point. And so now the states can't even control their own land or their own resources. In fact, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah are all about 85% owned by the federal government. My county of Graham County, Arizona, is 95% owned by the federal government. I wonder when we're going to wake up and say, you know, this isn't Arizona. We're federal enclave number 48 because we were the 48th state. So it's time that the governors of every state tell the federal government to get out, and my case can prove it. Now, what I did is I said, look, I'm not going to go along. There's no way that I'm going to violate my oath for the federal government, for the Clinton administration, for this stupid thing called the Brady Bill. And so I was the first sheriff in the United States to file a lawsuit against my own government. And the decision was just between me and my wife and the Lord. That was all it was. And the next day, the historical perspective of this is that I called the NRA. I had no place else to go. I wasn't a member of anything. I wasn't a member of the NRA. I'm still not today. But I called them and I said, what can I do to stop this? And they said, we've already been working on this case, and we needed a sheriff to call so we could have standing. And I said, well, let's do it. I want my own lawyer, though, and they recommended a lawyer for me that I hired personally out here in Arizona by the name of Dave Hardy. He worked with the NRA lawyers. And we got this thing filed the very day the Brady Bill took effect on February 28, 1994. Then some other sheriffs joined the case, and there was only 5 or 6 that came in. Sheriff Prince from Montana and I ended up at the United States Supreme Court in December of 1996. And on June 27, 1997, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the Brady Bill was indeed unconstitutional, that the federal government cannot tell the states what to do, that they cannot, and this is in the ruling itself. Let me tell you what this is.
So they indentured the gun dealers instead, and it should be thrown out on that. But the point is, you took action, you sued, you got involved. Americans want to know what solutions are. Everybody just start standing up to the feds. We'll win, lose, we'll draw. But we know if we lay down, we're going to lose. Go ahead.
Well, that's right. And listen to this. I mean, this was so well hidden from the public, and Bill Clinton made the media go along with him in making sure that the citizens of this country never heard what this decision really did. Now, listen to this. This is the order of the court. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states even to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions. And you just addressed what those are, cities and counties, to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system of dual sovereignty.
And what does that say? That's a Supreme Court ruling that you never hear about. What does that say for cap and trade? What does that say with the feds showing up onshore in Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, now Texas, telling county commissioners and sheriffs they can't be on the beach. Some little BP goon. I mean, that's why this stuff's important, because I mean, that's what the 11th Amendment says. You have foreign powers come and buy off presidents and Congress. We've got to have state rights, so they can't have BP. I mean, what's next? Is BP going to tell us move out of our house? They're going to move in. Next, we got to give our daughters to BP, like prima noctu 600 years ago in England.
Yeah, prima noctu was, you're starting to wonder, because they're sure raping our land all the time.